Welcome to My Counselor Live. Guys, we are live on Facebook. So excited to be here. Whether you're watching right now or watching the replay, we are happy that you're tuning in. And it is always just such a pleasure to be able to interact with y'all in this way, especially through this year that we started doing this and a pandemic. It's just such a cool way to be able to connect with people, even through all of the craziness of the world right now. So we love getting to interact with you guys. If you think of questions as we are going through this episode, feel free to comment them or inbox them, or you can go to MyCounselor.Online/ask to go ahead and submit your questions. So we're going to jump in, and today I am super excited to introduce y'all to my friend September Trent. September has been with MCO for a while now and just has so much experience and is just so knowledgeable, so good at what she does. And September, I'm going to just hand the mic over to you, let you introduce yourself to the people watching.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. I have worked at MCO for 8 years. I really love this environment of just being able to integrate Christianity theology into psychology and just being able to use clinically proven techniques to help others along with using their faith to help them. One thing that I really enjoy doing is working with teenagers, and I know we're going to talk about teenage girls in just a little bit, but also I work with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, self-harm, and just women's issues. And those are things that I've been working with for over 8 years, and just really, really enjoy meeting individuals where they're at and helping them achieve just some healthy goals in their lives.
Yeah, no, I love your expertise. I mean, around so many different things, but specifically around women and struggles that we experience. And you are so great, September, just at making, us as women feel less alone in our struggles. And, I love that you even mentioned, teenage girls, and that you are great with that as well, because, there's so much, there's so many different seasons that we experience as women. And, I'm sure the people watching can attest to that. There's just so many different seasons and stages of life. And so it's so amazing having a counselor on our team who really specializes and really focuses in on those different seasons.
Yeah, and I should also mention that I am located in the Springfield office, and so if you want to come see me in person, that's where I'm at, or I can see you online as well, and just look forward to being able to just discuss some of the things that I really enjoy working with.
Yes. So you've been with MCO 8 years, so I would love to hear, how you found MCO, how you got involved with the company.
Yeah. I actually, a friend referred me to the company 8 years ago. I mostly, they were working with couples and marriages and sex therapy, and that's not something really that I worked with, so I was kind of nervous applying, but got the job, and just they supported me in being able to do individual therapy, and then also learning how to do some marital therapy as well. And just am so thankful that the Lord led me here, because it's just such a great environment, and just get to see people just really have some healing.
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit, just the combination of spirituality with psychology, and that we're able to, bring them together, which I think that they're meant to be together. I think there's such a spiritual tie to so many different struggles that we experience. And so I love your heart for that, and that, that's how you see counseling. And, it's not to say that the things that people experience aren't real. It's just that there is a part of it that is spiritual, and it's so important to talk about that.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, people coming in to see me, they want that integration of their faith. That is so important to them, because that is how they live their life. Their relationship with the Lord is so important. And the problems that they experience, they want to be able to have the Lord's help with that. But then I also see people that are struggling with their relationship with the Lord. And we're able to talk about that, and talk about just the wide range range of emotions with that, and how the specific tools that are clinically proven can integrate with what they know about the Lord, and also just kind of repair their relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, yeah, so good. Wow. Well, I am super excited for our conversation over the next hour or so. And you guys, welcome. If you are just now hopping on, welcome to My Counselor Live. I'm Tori, here today with September Trent, one of our amazing counselors here at MyCounselor.Online. So we're going to dive into one of your articles, September, that you wrote. I love getting to talk about the articles because we talk through so much more than just what's in the article. It's almost like really sitting down and having a conversation around what's in the article. And so that's really fun for me, really cool. And I'm super excited to talk about this because, I think especially like now looking back as an adult woman, I can look back and see myself as, being a teenager, being a daughter, and being in that place of really like struggling to gain my parents' trust, really not trusting them, just all of the different things that came along with that. And so I'm excited to hear your thoughts, but let's just start off by talking through who this article, Building Trust with Teen Daughters, was written to.
Yeah, I wrote this article to parents who have daughters like between the age of like 13 through 17, maybe as young as 12, but maybe 18 as well. 18 is kind of throwing in there the adult side. But just parents that are looking for some help. Maybe they're struggling with how to set boundaries with their daughters, how to build just a healthy relationship. And then also just maybe there's some people that are like, okay, my daughter's almost 13. I want to make sure I do this right. I want to have kind of some preventative measures. So just being able to focus on how do I build trust and how do I have these healthy boundaries with my teenage daughter. So that's really who I wrote the article for. I've seen just in the 8 years that I've worked here, a lot of different parents with daughters just struggling. And so I thought of those types of clients when I specifically wrote this article.
Yeah, can you touch on, those clients that you've had, those parents who were struggling? What specifically would you say that they were kind of struggling with around their teenage daughters?
Yeah, they, came in with maybe just looking at how do I manage my daughter having her own cell phone or social media, or even going out with friends, having more freedom when she got her license. Also could be they've recently found out that their daughter is suffering from self-harm or an eating disorder or anxiety, and they want to make sure that she gets the help that they need and that they can be most supportive to their daughter by having that trust, by building a relationship with them. And then some, it's just parenting issues, just as their teenage daughter is becoming a teenager. How do I navigate that? Because our relationship is looking different than when she was younger.
Yeah, so good. Will you define trustworthiness as you do in your article?
Yeah, in my article, I included some things with trustworthiness, quite a few, just because I think it's good to have that wide range viewpoint of what that is, and just to have some concrete things. So as a parent, when you're thinking through, okay, what do I need to be looking for with my daughter, and how can I communicate this to her realistically and specifically? So in the article, I define trustworthiness as keeping your word, being honest, having respect, accepting limits, and acknowledging your mistakes. And so to break those down a little bit, keeping your word is, maybe you're talking with your daughter and you're saying, hey, when I ask you to do something and you say you're going to do it, you're going to follow through. You're going to keep your word. And the flip side goes is as a parent, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to keep my word as well, because they're watching you and you're that role model for them. Also just that honesty piece of, and I talk about, and we'll get to later in the article, just it's more important to be honest, and there's going to be less consequences if you come to me and tell me that you made a mistake, rather than trying to hide it and having more dishonesty. Just that respect too, just that that my daughter will speak to me with respect, but then also I will show her respect as well, in that I'm not going to, if I raise my voice or if I'm yelling, I acknowledge that that's may not going to be the best way to build that relationship with her. As well as just that accepting limits, that we can't always do the things that we want. We don't always get freedom that we want or responsibility right away. And just having to earn that, having to show people that, maybe it's in a job and maybe we started out just kind of the lower end, and we have to show our employer that we can be trusted to have higher responsibilities and more responsibilities. And part of those things are just accepting that some of those parts of our employment or job don't include maybe some of the things we would like. Also just acknowledging that we make mistakes, and that your daughter makes mistakes, that you as a parent make mistakes. And that's an important thing too, is, letting your daughter know, like, if you made a mistake, letting her know that, and apologize and say, hey, I didn't act right in this, or I didn't respond the way I wanted to. And I want you to know that, and I'm working on it. And that models for your daughter that she's going to make mistakes, but come talk to me about it, because that's going to be more important than trying to prove you're perfect or trying to hide it.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to that like honesty piece in your article that you touch on, just staying informed in your daughter's life and what she's up to and what she's doing and what she's pursuing. And I guess my thought is, so many teenage daughters don't want to talk about it, don't want to like have those conversations and really open up. So, what if they don't? What if you try to stay informed on their life and they don't want to talk about it?
Yeah, that is a difficult situation. But a couple things that I would recommend is, with being informed, it kind of consists of two things. One, the communication, but then secondly, also the relationship. First of all, it is really important that you stay involved in your daughter's life, with the activities that she's doing. She may tell you, I don't want you to come to my softball game, or I don't want you to come to the art show, but still do your best to be there, to support her, to show her that what she's interested in is important to you. And also praising her for that. I know you've worked really hard to make JV for softball, or I see that you worked hours on this art project or practiced the song, and I'm just so proud of you for the hard work that you put into it. And so having and maintaining that relationship is key. That's going to help her open up to you. And it's just little things of being there, of like we talked about before, like if you say you're going to go to something, go, or if you're not able to, let her know why, and have a conversation around it. And just spending time together at home. Maybe that's watching a movie together, making sure that each night you guys, or as many nights as you can, have dinner as a family. If you're a dad, maybe making kind of a time where it's kind of your time with your daughter and it's just the two of you. Same with mom, just having those times together. And then the communication piece, the important piece with that is really, when you approach your daughter, not making her talk to you, but just letting her know, hey, I noticed this, or I care about you, and I'm just curious. When you're ready to talk with me about it, please come and talk with me. I'm willing to listen. And having just being more like receptive and attentive to your daughter, rather than trying to judge her. Be curious. Why did she make this decision? And how can you really understand where she was coming from? Now, there is a point as a parent, obviously, when certain things happen, you do have to be more specific and get information, obviously. But in everyday kind of conversations, really trying to open that up for her, that if there's things that she needs to talk about, you're going to be there for her, and you're going to do your best not to freak out, because that's a hard thing too. But you are her parent, so I definitely understand when that happens.
That's good. I see myself in a lot of what you're saying from when I was a teenager. And, my parents did the best they could. I was the first child, first daughter to kind of go through and bring them into that stage. And, I definitely see things that maybe could have been different, and things that maybe I would love to do differently when I have kids someday. So I definitely see the importance of being informed and just that trustworthiness piece, I think, between, both the parents and the daughter, and going back and forth, where, the daughter trusts them and then they trust her too, you know. I think that that's just so important. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the freedoms that, you know, that she may want, that they may not want to give her, that kind of thing. You say in the article, freedom isn't always free. So can you expand on that idea a little bit?
Yeah, just that daughter understands that freedom is built on that trust. That if she wants more freedoms, she has to show you that she can be trustworthy, and that if she can treat something well, if she can be responsible in something, that then she can be given more. And also, it's helpful in this area is to be pretty specific or be pretty direct. And the example I gave in the article was about like an iPhone and social media. And so, you know, talking with your daughter about, hey, this is the things that you need to do to show me that you're responsible enough to get on social media, to have a phone. You know, it's not just that, okay, you turn 13 or 15, here's your phone, here's your, you can be on social media. It's, hey, are you responsible enough to have this, these privileges? Do you know safety online? Do you know if something comes up for you, who to talk to about it? So just the fact that she wants all of these freedoms, but it does take time to be able to have those things. And praising her, like if she does something really well, if you tell her, if you want a phone, you know, you have to show me that. If you are going somewhere, you are there when you say you're going to be there. Praising her about that and letting her know, hey, that shows me that I can trust you, and that shows me you can handle more freedom, or you're building up to what you're wanting. Because it can also be difficult for a teenager, a teenage girl, just like feeling maybe her parents want her to do these things to be responsible, but it's not building up to anything. And so helping her see, kind of have small goals, helping it be pretty tangible of, hey, these are the 3 things we would like you to do to show that you're responsible, trustworthy. And when she does them, praise her for that, remind her of that, and then remind her, hey, this is something you've worked for, and I feel like you're able to have that freedom responsibly. I guess an example of that would be, if we look at, I think a good example for like teenage girls or just teenagers is getting their driver's license. They don't just hand that to you when you're 16. You know, you have to take a test, you have to study for it, you have to prepare, you have to prove to the DMV that you can drive and you're responsible, and then they'll let you have your license. And so similarly with, you know, with parenting and with freedoms, is there's specific tests that she needs to prove, hey, I can be responsible with, to show you I deserve these things.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so like easy for me to hear what you're saying and look at it now, you know, pre-kids, pre-having teenage daughters. But I just think to myself, what about the parents that maybe didn't implement any of these things and now their daughter's 15, 16 years old? I mean, what if your daughter is just already indifferent, doesn't trust you, doesn't want to be with you, doesn't want to talk with you? I mean, what then?
Yeah, that is a great question. What I would tell you is it's never too late, in that you may feel like it's hopeless, but it's not. It is going to take time, because if these haven't been implemented, your daughter has learned maybe she can act or behave in a way that maybe isn't helpful to her, or maybe isn't responsible. So when you initiate the boundaries, when you initiate these new maybe specific rules that you have, she's going to push against those. She's not going to like them. But the important thing is that you're consistent and you communicate to her, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is what's important for this with us. But maybe it is also like, maybe need to go to counseling, maybe need to seek some family therapy just to be able to build that relationship if there's hurt in the past. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just a lot to do on your own. And that's okay. There's no shame in that. We all need help at certain points in our life, and being able to ask for that is an important piece. And of course, your daughter may be like, I don't want to go to counseling, I don't want to work on this. But if you can kind of humbly tell her, hey, I really care about you, and I would like a relationship, I would like to work on this. If you're willing to just try, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah. What would you, September, as a counselor who specializes in this area say to the parents reading this article?
Yeah, I would just tell them, number one, I guess there's a couple things I would tell them. Like I said just a little bit ago, it's never too late. Even if your daughter's 18, yes, she can make her own decisions, but communicating to her that you want a relationship and that if she's willing, you're willing to work on it with her, whatever you need to do. Also, just keep, working hard, because I know it's hard to raise a teenager in this day and age, and making sure that you remind yourself that you are doing good work, and getting people around you to support you in parenting, because it is difficult, and that support is going to be so valuable to you.
Yeah, it's a different world that we're living in now with technology, and teenage girls look a lot different than even I looked. And, that was what, like 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago for me. And so even now they look super different from how I looked. And, this is just the age of like digital natives and kids that were literally born into a world with the internet. And it's different, and it's different. And I can imagine for parents that it's so hard because, you don't even know the boundaries because they've never been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely with those boundaries, being as concrete as you can. Mm-hmm. And if you can be the one to communicate those and implement them as early as you can. But like I said, it's never too late to start implementing them, because even if she's 15, 16, her learning those boundaries now is going to help her when she's 18, when she's 20, out on her own. And so, and specifically with like the internet, seeking resources of, how can I set boundaries? What are the best resources that I have to set those boundaries? And being able to communicate to her, hey, if I'm going to check your phone once a week, and if there's nothing on there that you haven't told me about and you're acting responsibly, then I'm going to give you more freedom with that, and just more, because we don't want to not give her the tools that she will need when she is on her own.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. That's awesome practical advice. I'm like filing it away. And I think that this is a good transition into the next segment of the episode, which is trending topics. So trending topics are just, things that people are Googling, talking about right now online. And obviously something that has really spiked in this new world that we're living in with technology is child sex trafficking. This is something that has, I think, it's been talked about for years and years, but I think this year specifically, I have seen a lot more conversation, a lot more, even just conspiracy and different things. I mean, just so much conversation around child sex trafficking. And so I would love if we could just talk about that for a little bit. I want to start by talking through what child sex trafficking is, kind of the difference between child sex trafficking versus adults and women and men. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So generally, sex trafficking, human trafficking is defined as like using force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone into commercial sex, like against their will. Now, for like a child or someone who is a minor, that force, fraud, or coercion doesn't have to be there. It's just if you force a minor into commercial sex, that's human trafficking. And so it's just important to kind of have that in mind, in that these individuals, these children, are often the people who try to traffic them. They use means to make them believe maybe it's going to be a better life, or feel really cared about, or
right, I was going to say like grooming.
Yes.
Big thing with kids.
Yeah, grooming is a big thing. And that's an important thing that like parents can do, is educate their kids about what grooming is, what that looks like. like, for example, when you as a parent have a conversation with your kid about sex, having that sex talk, really talking with them about like what's good touch, what's bad touch, and having them be aware of how their body feels. And like if they're ever talking to someone and they feel uncomfortable, listening to that and telling them, no matter who it is, come and talk to me about it because your body's telling you something. And that can simply just be like a conversation that didn't feel right with an adult, and that could be a grooming behavior. And making sure that your child is aware of, they may try to talk about things that are inappropriate, or they may try to give you things to maybe do something inappropriate with them, or an adult may tell you, let's keep this just between us or as a secret. And making your kids aware that it's not okay. Healthy adults aren't going to ask kids to have secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, why is it important that we understand what child sex trafficking is, but you kind of just answered it for me and just touched on it. But I just think of even the importance of us as adults being able to pick up on things, really being mindful of the people that we're interacting with, and whether or not something is okay that's happening with a child in front of you. I've heard so many stories of different people on airlines and even just, at the mall, and a kid with an uncle or an aunt or something like that, picking up on things. And typically it's because they knew the signs, they knew what they were looking for. And when they saw it, they were able to do something to help.
Yeah, definitely. I think those signs are very important in recognizing, like with a kid, first kind of as the parent, the preventative measures, like we talked just a little bit ago about some of the grooming. If you don't feel comfortable with someone, making sure they're telling you, or a trusted adult, no matter who it is, because there's this misconception that it's going to be by someone they don't know, but it can happen by someone they do know.
And a lot of times it does.
Yeah, it can be, a boyfriend or a relative or something like that. And I guess as kids, maybe it's kind of young to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, but, someone that they know.
Right. And I think it's cool that you even just touched on that, because I think when people think of child sex trafficking, they think child like, 10 and under. But it's any minor, any child, under the age of 18 is a part of that.
Yeah. And some things, can be aware of is like if you see someone like where maybe you're trying to ask them something or having a conversation and they're looking around at the person next to them, they're feeling like they don't have the freedom to like talk, or they have to ask permission, or maybe they're not feeling like they're free to like leave their situation, leave that person. Maybe you see some concerns with like hygiene, clothes, they're not being taken care of. Those can be some signs, as well as something to be aware of, like the signs of sexual abuse, because sometimes that can come into play where they're maybe over sexualized, and so they are doing things that would be inappropriate for their age, or maybe on their Facebook page or social media there's very sexualized content. That can be some warning signs as well. And we should say that just one of these things doesn't mean that someone's being sex trafficked, but when you see something, say something, or take that into account, because there are many times where you'll see these one little things, and it's important that we bring attention to them, because there may be something going on that you didn't even know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I even think of it being our responsibility as adults, as, good adults in this world, to be able to protect these kids, especially when they feel like they can't protect themselves. Who's going to protect them? Not the person who is, putting them in that situation. I mean, it's us. It's those of us who know the signs and know what to look for and are able to speak into that situation and hopefully save kids from really tough stuff. So I guess I'd love it if we could talk for a few minutes about some practical tips, specifically to parents who need to have this conversation with their kids, because it is a conversation that needs to happen, even, young, with young kids. I mean, how do you have that conversation? Even I think of kids who maybe don't necessarily understand what sex is yet. How do you have that conversation with them?
Yeah, definitely. I think at a young age, when you're teaching about like stranger danger, or, we can't trust everyone. Having that conversation with your child about, there are some people in this world that aren't nice to kids, and they don't treat them with care, and we have to be aware of that. And so if you ever feel uncomfortable or something's not right, come and tell me. You never have to stay in a situation where you don't feel comfortable, no matter who it is. As well as kind of letting them know to trust their instincts, because sometimes you'll get that icky feeling and you're like, what's that about? And letting them know, hey, trust that and get help. Also, just being aware of or having a conversation with them about what's good touch and bad touch, because sometimes we don't really do that. And so the kids don't really realize, okay, if someone's asking to do things, is this a game? And they don't really understand that that's not okay. So having these upfront conversations about what's appropriate, what's not, and making sure these things are coming from you, because unfortunately, nowadays young kids get exposed to sex and content way younger than we were aware of or than you would want them to be. And so it's important that it comes from you first. I also think another important piece of it is teaching your kids about safety on the internet, because sex traffickers will use internet, social media to like target them, to get them kind of interested, or even getting information about them so that they can use that against them later. One thing is also that's helpful to keep in mind is kind of the progression of how sex trafficking happens, and like the person that wants to sex traffic someone, they'll identify the target. Maybe that target is a kid who they feel like doesn't have a whole lot of support around them, or that they're an easy target. And then they'll create dependency. And that might be by asking for information, asking for pictures. Maybe it could be if it's someone that doesn't have a good support network, maybe they provide them with things, and the person feels dependent on them. And then their next tactic is to isolate them, get them away from the support that they have, and so that they don't have that to help them out of that situation. Then they'll also kind of punish them if that trafficked person doesn't want to do what like the perpetrator wants, and so then they ultimately have like that control, and so it's also hard for them to leave. And so that's why understanding that for prevention, but then also to be able to help in those situations is important.
Yeah, you just mentioned all of those different kind of steps into being in that situation. I just think, man, like that's hard. That would be hard as an adult to experience. But when you're a child, you maybe don't even realize the things that you're feeling, the things that you're thinking. I mean, I can't imagine experiencing those things. I mean, it's so frightening, and it feels, as a kid, maybe it feels a little normal. I'm not really sure. But I can just see in what you just mentioned, that being difficult for me as an adult.
Yes. Yeah. I think too, that's why as parents, having conversations with your kids about good boundaries, about what a healthy relationship looks like, how people will communicate with you, how a healthy person communicates with you, how we talk respectfully to one another, how you're not expected to do things you don't feel comfortable with. Or if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Or if you're ever questioning if this is right or wrong, come and talk to me about it. Or if you don't trust me, go and talk to a school counselor or a teacher at school that you trust. And just encouraging that healthy support network.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot today, just the trust and honesty around parenting with your kids. And I mean, this is, a whole nother level. We were talking earlier about teenage daughters and, giving them freedoms and building that trust with them. But then it's like, you think, this could be so much more serious, when it comes to things like this. Like, you want to have that trust built with your kids because you want to prevent anything like that from ever happening.
Right. Right. I think it also kind of goes back to being involved in your kid's life as much as you can, knowing who they're going spending time with, what they're doing on the internet, and making sure that you're not avoiding these conversations, because I know there can be anxiety and fear about it, but it's so important that it comes from you and you keep the discussion going, you keep the conversation open, that they can talk with you about these things, and it's important that they do. And there's no shame or embarrassment. I want to help you with this.
Yeah. So good. So good. Thank you so much for just answering that, September. And I hope that the people watching don't walk away from this feeling anxious or stressed. You know, I mean, I don't want anyone to walk away with that feeling. I want this to be empowering, and, you know, that you are your child's protector, and, you know, you want to build that trust and you want to keep them safe, and it's good. And so hopefully this is an empowering conversation for the people watching.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too to make about when you have these conversations with your children. The point isn't to have them feel anxious and fearful that the world is ultimately a bad place, but that let's just be aware of our surroundings, let's be aware of things. It's not something that we have to be anxious about all the time or fearful about. It's just something that we need to be aware of, and when we can, practice just these preventative measures.
Yeah, so good. Oh my goodness. Well, we've got a little bit longer, so I'm going to jump into the Q&A portion of our conversation today. You guys, if you're watching right now, watching the replay, watching live, we're so happy you're here, and I'd love for you guys to submit your questions. If you have questions around what September's saying, you know, around child sex trafficking, raising kids, or just anything really, feel free to submit that at MyCounselor.Online/ask, or inbox it or comment it, and we'll get that answered in a future episode. And of course, September is always available for counseling as well, and we will make sure and put that in the description too. So let's jump into the Q&A portion and talk through some questions that people have been asking. So I'm going to start with this question that was submitted to us online on our website. This person said, "How can I counter lies and destructive critique in myself? I battle this all the time."
Yeah, that is such a good question. I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to.
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah, September, please tell me how I can do that.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I wish I had like a little small answer for you, because I think it also kind of depends on what are those specific lies? What are those deceptions that are coming in your life? And where have they come from? And so thinking about like, where are the origins of those? Maybe specifically, if it's about body or body image, have there been specific things in your life that have influenced those beliefs and those thoughts? And also just being aware of in your daily life, when you encounter things that support that lie, that deception, what do you do with it? Do you take it in and say that supports it, that gives evidence to my lies and my deception, so I need to believe it? Or are you able to say, no, that doesn't have to follow in with that lie and that deception that I know is there? And so it's very important to identify what are those negative thoughts, the lies, the deceptive thoughts that are in there, and being able to recognize, okay, when I have these negative thoughts, these lies in my mind, how do they then influence my emotions? Because most of the time, if they influence kind of your feeling about maybe your body or your ability, then your emotions may be shame, sadness, fear, loneliness. And then that goes back into kind of creating this cycle of negative thoughts. And so really needing to take a step back and focus when things happen about, okay, what are some things that I know have happened that counteract these negative beliefs, these lies that I have? Because if you have really negative beliefs about yourself, you're going to take in information that supports those beliefs, because it's easier to do that than take in information that counteracts it or doesn't support it. And so really being aware of those thoughts. And so kind of in conclusion, I know that was kind of a lot, but just really understanding where have these come from? What am I doing, or how am I taking in the information to support those negative thoughts? And when can I, and definitely take time to stop and notice positive things that are going on, helping them restructure that mind, those thoughts with it, rather than saying that those positive things aren't true.
Yeah, I think like counseling is a very helpful thing in this kind of situation, just to be able to process with another person. I don't even, it doesn't necessarily have to be a counselor, although they are trained to be able to get to these roots and talk about them and give you practical
Yes.
tips. But I just think that not isolating yourself in those destructive thoughts and those lies is so important. And it's so helpful in processing and getting through that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. At times, it is helpful to seek like professional help and go to a counselor and talk through the lies and the deception, especially if there's like trauma or what's underneath those is really significant and it's hard to get through that on your own or like with a friend. But you're exactly right in having a sense of like community and not isolating yourself. Sharing some of these lies and destructive thoughts that you have about yourself with a trusted friend, and having them support you as you tear those down and as you try to identify ways to look at it differently. Also, inviting the Lord to come in, using prayer as well. That can be helpful too. And also maybe there might be some other supports in your life that you can let them know, hey, I'm working on this. If you see any positive things or things that you admire about me or things like that, please let me know, because I want to be able to use those to structure my positive thoughts.
Yeah, love that. Well, that's awesome. And hopefully that was able to encourage our viewers right now. Because, yeah, like you said, I think this is something that we all collectively, universally struggle with, maybe some more than others, but
Yeah.
there's always hope, right? There's always, hope for a better day tomorrow, and processing through it with the help of a counselor or a friend or someone. So definitely, yeah, you're not alone. If you're watching this and you have these kinds of feelings, you're not alone. And yeah, so let's jump into this other question we got online. This person said that their psychiatrist is actually prescribing them an injection. They said, what can I say to him to get out of it? He fears a relapse, but I'm fearing permanent damage.
Okay. Yeah. What I would say with this one is having this person have a conversation with their psychiatrist, and that may ask the psychiatrist, if the appointment time is not a very long appointment, asking for extra time or scheduling a longer period of time, and just asking the doctor to have an open conversation about, okay, what are the benefits that you think, or why you're prescribing this for me, and what are some of the side effects. And then this person that had the question or gave us the question, maybe if it's helpful, if it's really difficult for them to be open to the psychiatrist writing some of this down of these are some of the things that I struggle with having this injection. These are my concerns, and this is why I don't want this to happen, or these are the reasons why I'm concerned. Can you help me navigate these? And really having that open conversation with the psychiatrist. And I know that can be very anxiety producing because the psychiatrist is a doctor and,
Yeah.
is prescribing it.
I was going to say, I mean, I'm thinking like that could be so like uncomfortable and kind of like stressful to be like, not defying what the doctor's saying, but just kind of questioning like, okay, why do I need this? Like, here
Sure.
are my concerns. I mean, it can feel very like I'm overstepping.
Sure. Yeah, I think just trying to have an open conversation with him or her, just that, you have prescribed this for me and I just want to know all of my options, and I just want to know before this happens, what can I expect? Just because I do have anxiety about it and I'm just nervous about it. And just knowing ultimately, you are in charge of your health. And so it's important that you talk to your doctor about the concerns and things that might be going on that you just don't feel comfortable with. And maybe it just involves, maybe if you have a counselor, talking with them about it as well, exploring like maybe the permanent damage that you're worried about, or just the fears that you have with this injection. Just because it is anxiety provoking and it is difficult to think about talking with your psychiatrist or feeling like you're defying them. But you also want to make sure you feel comfortable with the procedures that you're saying that you're okay with.
Yeah, for sure. And you are absolutely right that, you're in control of the choices that you're making. And what happens. And so it's important to, yeah, like know your options. Obviously, yes, like we trust so many of our doctors. We trust their expertise in different things, and that they are there to protect us and to keep us safe. And so it can be daunting to have the conversation, but I do think it's necessary. If you're feeling anxious, I think your psychiatrist would want to have that conversation with you.
Definitely. I think it's important with any medication that is prescribed to you, having the conversation about, okay, how is this going to help me? What side effects? And I
Right,
think the
what's
doctor,
going to affect in me.
yeah. And I think the doctor would welcome that, having the conversation, or their patient really wanting to be informed and wanting to make sure they know how this drug is going to impact them. So yeah, it's daunting, but that's something that I think your psychiatrist would welcome, and would encourage you to have that conversation if you're so nervous about it.
Yeah, sweet, awesome. Well, let's jump into this last question, and then we will close things out. So this last question says, my marriage was sexless for many years due to severe intimacy anxiety. This in turn makes me unable to perform sexually. Can you help me?
Yeah, this is a good question. Definitely, we can help you. This is something that our practice sees a lot, is anxiety impacting intimacy. And
Totally.
so, yes, yeah. And I think we don't talk enough about some of these issues or dysfunctions in just the marital sexual relationship. And so knowing that as a practice, we have people that can help you with that. And what that would look like is having, you and your spouse come in and being able to talk about what marriage has looked like, what has your sex life looked like, and diving into what's the anxiety about and why is it attaching itself to the intimate relationship. And that can be a wide variety of reasons why it would do that. And working with you and your spouse to be able to have tools to for you to reduce the anxiety and being able to work through those intimacy issues together.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like you said, like this is something that, the practice is really knowledgeable about. And we have so many counselors who are trained sex therapists and have just a deep understanding of even just the science behind anxiety and trauma and how that can affect you sexually. So it's definitely something that should be talked about, and that can be helped, and God's design of sex in marriage is this perfect, beautiful, pleasurable design. And that's, our desire ultimately, as, a practice would be for people to have that experience with it. So, yeah, super good. And I just love your insight. I know that's not something that you necessarily specialize in, but it's still something that you're so knowledgeable in and have probably seen a lot of women in situations like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just great that this person asked the question, because instead of just continuing on with the anxiety around sex, or even having sex but it's not enjoyable, that's not what we want for you and your marriage. It's, let's talk about this, let's fix this, let's work on this so that you can enjoy it and your sexual relationship can be what the Lord wanted it to be. And it's definitely something that's fixable. And so I appreciate this person asking the question, even if there was a lot of guilt or shame. And so just being able to know that there is help out there, and this is something that we see a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are watching this and this question resonated with you, or you asked this question, hopefully you feel empowered to reach out to us or another counselor. But, we have so many counselors that specialize in sex therapy and are just really wise about it. And this isn't an uncommon thing. You're not alone in it. And it's something that can absolutely be helped. So amazing. Wow. I have just loved getting to talk with you and just hear your wisdom and insight. September, you always amaze me with just how eloquent you are and how well that you speak about all of these different things. I'm always just like, oh my gosh, like you said it exactly what people are thinking. You just said it and used the perfect words. So I love getting to talk with you, and I've really enjoyed our time together. So is there anything that you would love to leave our viewers with before we close this out?
Just that reminder that, especially with your teen daughters and parenting, it's never too late. Don't give up. You can do this. If you need help, ask for it. And just thank you so much for having me here. I just really enjoyed talking about these important topics.
Yes, thank you so much, September, for hopping on and giving your time today to talk with us. As always, you guys, thank you for joining. We are so happy we got to interact with you in this way. And if you thought of any questions, feel free to go ahead and comment them below or inbox them or ask them at MyCounselor.Online/ask. And we will see you next time for another episode of My Counselor Live.